I have always loved fantasy comics. I've loved Conan, Red Sonja, Elric, Heavy Metal's fantasy shorts, Gru even. I've loved a bunch of fantasy comics. Fantasy film and TV, on the other hand, I've never really warmed up to. I enjoy the scale of LOTR. I found myself glued to the screen whenever Xena was on, but more often than not, I found fantasy in TV and film a bit of a drag. Then I heard talk of a Red Sonja film, of it being a low budget affair, and I was cautious. The trailer hit the internet next, and the trailer was unimpressive. It looked cheap, had second rate villains, had that one guy from Umbrella Academy to make the whole thing come alive, but it still looked like it wouldn't be able to deliver. And then I saw the film. I'd like to preface this whole video by declaring that I'm not a die-hard Red Sonja fan. I've not read enough Red Sonja comics. I've read sporadic issues, everything from the old Marvel to random Gail Simone runs and some recent comics as well. And I have loved each and every version of Red Sonja that has been in print. But Red Sonja in the comic and Red Sonja in film, they're two separate entities. And I'd made up my mind a long time ago to think of comics and films as two separate entities, because I've been disappointed by films that didn't stick to the comics before. And that's on me really. It's my fault. So now I go into films knowing that comics are comics and movies are movies, and that's that. So Red Sonja the comics, Red Sonja the film, two completely different entities. Now that that's set up, let's go ahead and break that belief. Because what fun is it if you don't break stuff? In the comics, Red Sonja is violated. Then she goes and gets revenge on these violators. And that is changed completely in the film. I couldn't care less about the change really. What I do care about is that Red Sonja's character changes entirely in the film. She's feminine in the comics, sure, but she'll kick your teeth in if you look at her funny. She'll take her punches straight on the chin and stab you with a blade. She's a badass through and through. In this film, she's something else entirely. There's no edge to her, there's no swagger, no teeth to her character. Instead, she whispers to a horse lovingly. She prays and then sees some animals getting killed, so she prays again and then tells the animals that she will avenge their deaths or something. I didn't like this Red Sonja. She was soft, she was sensitive, she was breakable. She apologizes too damn much. She's girly, and I didn't come to this film for girly. The actress, Matilda Lutz, has the hair, I suppose, but she doesn't fit the image of Red Sonja. Not the image I have in my head. At the beginning of the film, through most of it, and by the end of it even, she looks nothing like Red Sonja. In the comics, Sonja is slender, sure, but she's got muscles coiled under her skin ready to come at you. She sports a scowl that'll hurt just as bad as her fists, and a look that more than makes up for her frail look. She's savage, and I realize this must be in my head, but she looks like she was built for war. Matilda Lutz, on the other hand, the actress who plays Red Sonja, is just frail. She could beat me up, sure, but that's a cheap bar to clear. There's no muscle there, no menace. She couldn't fight her way through an army like Red Sonja could. She could dress up as Red Sonja, the actress could, but she couldn't play the part, not really. And then Sonja dies somewhere near the end. She dies and she comes back from the dead, and we'll talk about that later. For now, let's just get back to what didn't work for me. The monsters didn't work for me. There's a giant cyclops that fights Red Sonja, but that fight's cut short. There are cow monsters or some sort of monsters that are killed by the king's men. There's a giant scorpion that's shoved into a cage. But these monsters, they're just window dressing. They have nothing to do with the actual story. This was a Red Sonja film. It was only right to expect giant monsters, small monsters, perhaps any monsters really. But this film was setting up a science fiction versus fantasy angle, and maybe having giant monsters in the narrative would probably steal the spotlight from this. Alright, forget the monsters. What about the SFX in the film? What about visuals? They don't have to look so abysmal. And the locations, they look nothing like fantasy locations, not like the ones in the comics. We have the lake in the film, the lake where the statue of the goddess is, and the water and the stone structures. The lake looks like something out of a fantasy film, sure, but the lake looks like a set, a low budget set at that. The film practically has no fantasy locations. It's all real world locations dressed up as fantasy scenes, and dressed up badly at that. Or worse, computer generated landscapes. I get it though. They had a shoestring budget, they had a B movie at their hands, and they had to dress it up as best as they could. Expecting there to be spectacle in the film, that might have been a bit of a reach, so I'll forgive them. They tried. I've gone at this film cursing the budget, the locations, lack of magic, a bunch of things, and that's probably got you folks believing this film isn't worth your time, and maybe you're right. But I loved the film. I loved every goddamn frame of it. The film stumbles. So often it stumbles. It looks bad. It looks wrong more often than not, but the story feels like a Red Sonja story. It was like I was turning the pages of a Red Sonja comic. I can't explain it, can't dress it up with logic, but this feels like a Red Sonja story. And that's the thing about films. They may look like shit, but they'll still steal your heart. I talked about Matilda Lutz earlier. I talked about her not looking like Red Sonja, and I talked about her dying and coming back from the dead. She dies, she comes back from the dead. But the actress Matilda Lutz doesn't come back from the dead. Red Sonja comes back from the dead. The Red Sonja I'd read in the comics, the Red Sonja with a barbarian swagger, the Red Sonja who'd made everyone's life hell, she was back. I don't understand how they pull this trick of making a meek looking Matilda Lutz look like a storm with a sword. She's Red Sonja. She's the Red Sonja that should have been in the film from the start. But the film kept this from us, probably because they needed an explosive end sequence. And you know what? I don't care. I'm just glad I got to see her like this. And then there's Dragon, the big bad, the evil to our Red Sonja. The film pits science against magic in this film, and I'm not comfortable with this. I don't like stories where they set up the two and they tip the scales so magic wins at the end. And that happens here too. But if I squint my eyes and look real hard, I can maybe take away another message from this film. Dragon is a tech bro in royal robes who has inventions and machines and huge power sources to fuel his war. His kingdom is his tech bro empire, and they pit Red Sonja against him and strip away her magic. What you're left with is a woman, ordinary flesh and blood, standing up against a tech giant, and she brings this whole empire crumbling down with just her sword and her ferocity. And I see a message I can get behind. It's a message I can live with. You might recognize Robert Sheenan, who plays Dragon, as Klaus from Umbrella Academy. That's part of our pop culture consciousness right now, and an easy association to make. But here's the kicker, and it's only now I'm realizing this, but Sheenan was Nathan Young in Misfits. I never realized it. Not when I watched Umbrella Academy, not when I watched Red Sonja. Misfits is a fantastic superhero show from Britain. Sharp, biting, clever, a kick-ass show that pushes superhero ideas to far beyond their limits. Misfits, if you haven't already watched it, track it down, watch it, and thank me later. Right, I've talked plenty about Red Sonja. Have you watched the film? Did you like it? Let me know. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.